Hello and welcome along to a brand new episode of Aviation Analysis, where we investigate some of the most dangerous, harrowing, and bizarre incidents ever to have occurred in the skies above us. It goes without saying that the majority of unidentified objects, mysterious sightings, and disappearances regarding extraterrestrials or the supernatural tend to have occurred in the sky. Despite popular belief that our alien friends are already among us, or that they reside at the bottom of our oceans, most of the action seems to take place above our heads. However, as we will discuss in this video, the phrase, "as above, so below," seems to sum up the curious case of Flight 19, an aerial exercise mission conducted in 1945 that ended in disaster and left behind an unresolved mystery. What was the mission, and what happened during its apparent routine operation? What was the immediate response and fallout of the strange events that occurred that day? And what theories have circulated ever since to lead many to believe that the tragedy of Flight 19 was more than just an accident? Join us on this episode as we try and understand what really happened to Flight 19 and the peculiar legacy it left behind. Initially called Navigation Problem Number 1, Flight 19's purpose was to undertake a routine navigation and combat training exercise in TBM-type aircraft on the 5th of December 1945, 7 months after the end of World War II. The collective assignment was a combination of bombing and navigation tasks, which other flights had completed or were due to conduct that day. The group of aircraft were made up of 3 TBM-1Cs, Bureau number 45714, FT3, Bureau number 46325, FT81, Bureau number 73209, FT117, 1 TBM-1E, Bureau number 46094, FT36, and 1 TBM-3, Bureau number 23307, FT28. Each were a constructed version of the Grumman TBF Avenger, built by General Motors' Eastern Aircraft Division under wartime production license. United States Navy Lieutenant Charles Carroll Taylor was given the role as flight leader and was more than capable for the job, having racked up over 2,500 flying hours in this particular aircraft. The trainee pilots each had 300 hours total, with 60 flight hours in the Avenger as well. Lieutenant Taylor had completed a combat tour in the Pacific Theater as a torpedo bomber pilot on the USS Hancock aircraft carrier, as well as being a VTB torpedo bombing plane instructor in Miami. The student pilots were US Marine Captains Edward Joseph Powers and George William Stivers, US Marine Second Lieutenant Forrest James Gerber, and USN Ensign Joseph Tipton Bossy. On the day of the mission, each plane was fully fueled for the 14-man team to conduct their operation, just like the previous 18 flights had done the previous day. However, it is noted that during pre-flight checks, all of them were missing clocks. Part of the mission was to teach the students on the importance of navigation and dead reckoning principles, including the consequences of elapsed time. Despite this issue, the men eventually took to the sky in the 5 TBM Avenger torpedo bombers, setting off from the US Naval Air Station in Fort Lauderdale, Florida at 14:10 hours. The navigational training mission was to include a triangular flight plan, which required the pilots to head east from the Florida coast and carry out bombing tutorials at a site known as Hens and Chickens Shoals. From there, they would head north towards the Grand Bahama Island before altering their course for a third and final trek back to base. Before setting off, and during the initial stages of the mission, weather updates from the flight path and surrounding areas were reported as normal, with just a few scattered showers. Visibility, wind speeds, and other potential issues were fairly standard for the time of year. The beginning of the exercise went well, with Taylor and his crew reaching Hen and Chicken Shoals bomb site without a hitch around 14:30 hours. As scheduled, a set of bombs were dropped onto the area as the group of students took notes and discussed the details of the task at hand. A recording shows one of the students requesting permission to drop the final bomb at 1500 hours before proceeding to the next stop. Unfortunately, they wouldn't make it there. Not long into the second leg of the journey, Lieutenant Taylor seemed to believe that his adventure's compass was glitching and that, as a result of this apparent malfunction, had been flying in completely the wrong direction. His concern worsened after the clouds began to thicken, reducing visibility and bringing with it a front of strong winds and heavy rain. A radio message was intercepted and recorded from the flight at approximately 1600 hours. It is most likely a discussion between Lieutenant Taylor and one of the other pilots from another Avenger aircraft. The pilot states, "I don't know where we are. We must have got lost after that last turn." Luckily, at this moment, another flight instructor with the Navy, Lieutenant Robert F. Cox, was flying near the Florida coast when he overheard the broadcast. Noticing the genuine concern in the men's voices and confusion of their flight path, he immediately informed the air station of the situation and then got in touch with the Avenger team directly to offer his assistance. Taylor, now extremely distressed, responded by saying, "Both my compasses are out and I'm trying to find Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I'm over land, but it's broken. I'm sure I'm in the Keys, but I don't know how far down and I don't know how to get to Fort Lauderdale." To Lieutenant Cox and those at the air station, Taylor didn't seem to be making much sense, as he made his scheduled pass over hens and chicken shoals in the Bahamas less than an hour earlier. Yet, somehow, he was convinced that he and his crew were now hundreds of miles off their scheduled course over the Florida Keys. Despite his impressive flying time and previous mission success, Taylor was only 27 years old, and many have since speculated that he may have confused some of the islands of the Bahamas with those of the Florida Keys. Unfortunately, Taylor's worries were echoed by one of the other pilots who called in soon after to the Naval Air Station at Fort Lauderdale to confirm that they were indeed lost. In a desperate attempt to help before communications were lost, operators at the NAS offered various options to help the men get back on course, such as switching radio frequencies to search and rescue frequency and requesting that Lieutenant Taylor turn on his YG IFF transmitter so that his location could be triangulated. The operators' attempts fell on deaf ears, as Taylor and his crew seemingly ignored their assistance. It is common practice for pilots who become lost to point their planes towards the setting sun and fly west towards the mainland. However, Taylor was adamant that he was hovering over the Gulf of Mexico. For some strange and disastrous reason, Taylor directed Flight 19 northeast, a decision that maneuvered the plans further out to sea. On one of the recordings, a member of the flight can be heard saying, "Damn it, if we could just fly west, we would get home. Head west, damn it." It was now dark, the sun had set and weather conditions had worsened. Word had spread amongst the nearby air stations and land-based radio networks, who, with their limited resources, were still able to triangulate Flight 19's position as being somewhere north of the Bahamas and significantly off the coast of Florida. At 18:20 hours, Taylor is recorded saying the following, which would become the final message from Flight 19. "All planes close up tight. We'll have to ditch unless landfall. When the first plane drops below 10 gallons, we all go down together." A few minutes later, all that can be heard is static. As tragic and terrifying as it was, that all 14 men were never seen or heard from again, the shocking tale of Flight 19 would not be the end of the story. Excluding the haunting communication logs between the AWS, Lieutenant Cox and Taylor's crew, the fact that the plane's fuel would have run out at 2000 hours meant that a search and rescue mission would have to commence immediately. At 1800 hours, just before Taylor delivered the final message to his fellow pilots, the Navy summoned 2 planes to find the missing crew. At approximately 1930 hours, a pair of PBM Mariner flying boats took off from an air station north of Fort Lauderdale. This is when things got even weirder. 20 minutes into the search and rescue mission, one of the Mariners disappeared from radar. The PBM-5 bureau number 59225 had taken off from NAS Banana River in Brevard County, Florida at 1927 hours, carrying a crew of 13 rescue personnel. Later that evening, a merchant ship off the coast of Fort Lauderdale reported seeing a burst of flame in the same region as where the plane was reported to have vanished from radar. Things were becoming grim, to say the least. The next morning, a major rescue effort was deployed by the Navy, which resulted in a search that lasted 5 days and covered 300,000 square miles. The remains of the Mariner and its 13 crewmen were never recovered. It is thought that the plane burst into flames shortly after it took off. However, there is no concrete evidence to prove this other than the fact that flying boat aircrafts were known for their faults. According to Navy Lieutenant David White, he claimed that they just vanished, and we had hundreds of planes out looking, and we searched over land and water for days, and nobody ever found the bodies or any debris. As with any mysterious disappearance or crash relating to aircraft, subsequent investigations and hearsay began to merge, with various theories and conspiracies making the rounds, especially as the Navy board could not fully explain what happened. As mentioned earlier, there is the possibility that Lieutenant Taylor got himself disorientated and therefore confused, mistaking the Bahamas for the Florida Keys. A commission was established and a full, thorough investigation by its members concluded that the fate of Flight 19 was due to causes or reasons unknown. This disappointing and extremely vague decision by the commission only added to the conspiracy theories about the disappearance, and soon discussions surrounding alien abductions, secret government projects, and other eerie possibilities began to circulate. One of the most common theories centered on the mysterious Bermuda Triangle. Also known as the Devil's Triangle, the supernatural region is located between Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico in the southwest and North Atlantic Ocean, where numerous aeroplanes and ships have either lost communication, been strangely misrouted, or disappeared entirely without explanation. In the years that followed Flight 19's doomed mission and the equally tragic rescue mission attempt, writers such as Vincent Gaddis and Charles Berlitz purported that the flights were another set of victims to the Bermuda Triangle's paranormal portal. The mission is also referenced in Steven Spielberg's 1977 science fiction classic film Close Encounters of the Third Kind. In the opening sequence, based in the Sonoran Desert, French scientist Claude Lacombe, amongst others, discovered Flight 19. The plane seemed to be in good condition with no signs of an attack. All that is missing is the pilots themselves. From there, a set of air traffic controllers observed two airline flights avoid a collision with an unidentified flying object near the state of India, thus setting the scene for the rest of the film. Conspiracy theorists often refer to films and specific filmmakers such as Stanley Kubrick and Spielberg himself, who often leave subliminal messages in their films to address a larger explanation to certain subjects. Could it be that Spielberg, an icon of cinema, knows more than we do and was trying to tell us something? Something which was discussed later, after all investigations were complete, sparked interest and concern regarding Lieutenant Taylor's demeanour from the outset. It is claimed that Taylor was uncharacteristically late for the pre-exercise briefing and appeared extremely apprehensive and agitated, stating he wanted to be removed from his duty of heading up the mission. Witnesses claim that he blurted out, "I just don't want to take this one out," in front of everyone, before eventually retracting his statement and leading the crew to their ill-fated journey. Despite the theories, little-known facts and science fiction tales of what may or may not have happened to Flight 19, the mystery still fascinates millions worldwide. Over the years, a general consensus believed that the plane simply ran out of fuel and collectively crashed into the ocean, somewhere off the coast of Florida. The Bermuda Triangle hypothesis is very credible, as those who have flown over the region and survived have claimed that navigational errors occur due to the agonic line, where magnetic compass variation is absent. This can lead to all sorts of issues and catastrophic disasters, and could easily explain the problems that Flight 19 encountered during those critical, terrifying minutes before disappearing. Another theory of the mysterious triangle involves rogue waves within the waters. These can reach up to 100 feet and easily overturn, sink, or fatally damage ocean liners and/or planes without leaving a single trace of evidence. What do you think? And so this brings us to the end of this episode of Aviation Analysis. We hope you enjoyed it. I guess we will never know what happened to Flight 19 and to all its crew members. Did Lieutenant Taylor know something in advance and try to abort the mission? Did the Bermuda Triangle drag them into some sort of time portal? Or could it simply be a case of man versus nature, and nature won? Perhaps the answer lies somewhere in the ocean, or a locked safe of top secret recordings and film footage. Until then, the mystery remains. Take care, folks, and we will catch you next time.